everyone for coming out tonight. I'm Sue Fillion. I'm the planning director, and I've been overseeing this project that the town has been doing to look at the intersections of Western Avenue and Guilford Street and Western Avenue and the two William Street segments. We received funding from special projects funding that the select board had allocated. We have hired SLR. We have Dave Sullivan here tonight. He is the manager of community and mobility planning with SLR. Over the past, for several months, SLR had been, in the fall, they were doing some data collection. So the project was on hiatus for a little bit as we were finishing up some other projects and there were some staff transitions, and now we're back on. Dave is going to be presenting the data that's been collected and what it's telling them. And then we have some activities just to kind of understand what the public is looking for in this area. And then we'll be working on, well, I'll let Dave tell you from there so I don't overstate it. So anyway, thank you for coming out tonight. I can't control the air conditioning, so for those of you that are cold, I'm sorry. If you came last night, John, I think I saw you last night. The Reformer had a misprint.
Yeah.
So apologies. Thank you for coming back tonight. I appreciate that.
Hey, so I got booted from the Zoom meeting. Need to be let back in.
What'd you do?
Way to go.
So with that, I will turn it over to Dave.
Thank you. Well, hello everyone. Again, Dave Sullivan, and we put together a short agenda.
Recording in progress.
But I think it's important that, from my perspective, we're going to give you a little bit of the existing conditions. We're not going to go into great depth. What I'm really here for is everyone in this room has more experience and more history in this quarter than I do. So I'm really looking for your input. And we have a couple of activities that I'll explain later. And some are more open-ended, some are a little bit close-ended, but we'll be looking for your feedback to help inform the next step. And the next step is really to assimilate all the information we get and come up with some concepts that meet the priorities, the wishes, the things out here that the majority of you are looking for. As you'll see, when we start doing some of these alternatives, there's lots of options, and there's been a number of options that have already been done. But that being said, I guess the first thing is, did everyone sign in? Should we pass the sign-in sheet around? If not, get it on your way out. The introduction, Sue did some of that. I did some of that myself. In the Community and Mobility Planning Group at SLR, this is what we do. We're a group that includes professional planners, transportation planners, municipal planners, traffic engineers. So we're really a compendium of different professionals in this field, and we come together and do studies like this, and it goes from the planning level to developing concepts which have some basis in reality because there's engineers involved in the development of those concepts. So that being said, the next thing I'll do is go through some of the existing conditions. Talk about some of the findings that we had in our initial set of analyses. We'll talk about the activities, and then after we do the activities, we'll come back and I'll wrap it up. Won't be a 15-minute wrap up, but I'll wrap it up and I'll let you know what's next. All right, so the project overview is really to develop design concepts that address the existing traffic issues surrounding the Vermont Country Deli and the Western Avenue and Guilford Street intersection. Those are our two main objectives. There's a lot of history out here. In particular, some of the concepts that were developed, these are 4 concepts. We didn't blow them up. You've probably all seen some versions of these. But essentially, they look at different alternatives on Western Avenue and slightly different access alternatives. In 2016, the Traffic Safety Committee revitalized the project. Last year, it got revitalized to the level of bringing us in to look at it, and here we are today.
Could you just walk through the four, what's different between the four?
Certainly. So let me start with concept one. Essentially, no changes on Western Avenue. It closes up the westerly leg and gets a little bit more parking and has one way out here and maintains two-way on the
Nope.
easterly leg of William Street.
Nope.
Again, these are quite old, but these are part of the history. So this one has some parking along here. It includes the pedestrian improvements that one has. The only difference in this one is the curb is bumped in, so we get a few parking spaces on street there. Concept 3 has parking on the north side of the road, and because of that, you have to add the crosswalk to get people safely across. But they all have similar parking lot improvements, and this one has parking on both sides. So that's the difference.
Excuse me, does that include no backing out onto Western Ave?
Yes, in all of these options, the backing out onto Western Ave is gone. So the primary focus here was that safety improvement to eliminate that parking, and what do you do to make up that parking and maybe add some more parking. That's I think what the thinking was when these concepts were developed. Of course, we didn't develop them. So. Moving on. Focus area, I won't spend a lot of time here, but we did some detailed field work where we were looking for the traffic-related elements that would be part of what we want to know and understand. So really, this is just showing where stop signs are, where crosswalks are, things of that nature, the no parking zones, things of that nature. So the overall in this area, as you know, it's a popular destination primarily because of its proximity to exit 2. There's a high demand for parking, and the existing configuration creates some traffic and safety issues. One in particular is the sight lines looking left from that leg. If there's a larger vehicle there, you can't see over it, which is significant safety issues. And the backing out alone is an issue. Interestingly, and I won't go into all of the accident data, but we did look at all the crashes. Interestingly, we were expecting that most of the crashes around here would have something to do with those vehicles backing out, and they weren't, believe it or not. And sometimes you get situations where people are so aware of a bad situation that it becomes almost safer because of that. Okay, Guilford Street, significant traffic volume, congestion. I'll get into some of the operational characteristics. We did do counts along the whole stretch of Western Avenue. There's speeding concerns here. There's merging issues with vehicles, with the speeding vehicles and people taking a right. That merge becomes somewhat problematic. One of the other things that we identified is this crosswalk. The visibility of that crosswalk is not great. So even though it's there and there's signage, it's kind of in a bad location because it's a mid-block crosswalk on a high-speed road with moderate to poor visibility, at least to the north side of the crosswalk.
May I ask a question?
Sure.
I can't really see all the details here, but do your plans take into consideration the residential properties that are in proximity to the Vermont Country Deli store, such as two houses that are on the east side of Western Avenue, thank you. Okay, and I live in one of them, and I've been there for 13 years, and it's been an ongoing headache trying to get, either nose out, back out, into traffic, and there's always cars illegally parked. Not just parked, but illegally parked, because there are signs that say no parking, and people don't bother to read the signs, So anyway, I won't go on, but have your plans, take that into consideration.
So we're not in the process yet of developing the actual plans. We want to find out what the preferences are, but the short answer to the question is yes. Part of our design will make sure that we don't create something worse than is already there for everybody. And if we can help it, so for instance, if we could reduce speeds through this whole corridor, it helps everybody. It doesn't just help a few people at these two locations. So all of those things will help you, for instance. But yes, we would make sure that anything we did was not injurious to your access, certainly.
Yeah.
And people picnic on your yard?
Uh,
Are you the one where people picnic on your yard?
no, not yet.
If you don't mind, if you could hold it, because what I'll try to do, because I want to get through this fairly quickly, because there's not a lot of new information that you don't already know, and then we'll have before we do the activities, we'll have a chance to have some back and forth a little bit, just so we can just get through the main thing. Other existing conditions, we identified crosswalks, we identified all the sidewalks, the bus stops, the speed data, speed limits, traffic counts. Now, we did do traffic counts through here. We did two types of counts. We did what we call automatic traffic recorder counts. You've probably seen tubes. And those give us variations by hour, actually by 15-minute period. They give it by direction, but more importantly, they give us speed data, so we can determine what the actual travel speeds are. We did those for Thursday, Friday, Saturday, Sunday, the first week of October. And the weather cooperated, so it should have been a busy period that we collected that data. Now, we also did manual counts, and that's in the old days, they used to have these little mechanical clickers, and if somebody takes a right turn, you click the right button. If they go straight, you click the middle button. So we had people out here doing those counts, and we did them from the ramps up to Guilford Street, and we did them for the morning rush hour, we did them for midday lunchtime rush hour, and we did them for the afternoon rush hour on Friday, October 4th. Again, a representative busy day. Crashes, I mentioned that we looked at 5 years worth of crashes, and again, I have some graphics in the back of the presentation if anybody's interested in those details. They'll all be part of the report. But again, I think the most important thing in these, the crashes do point us to certain things, but what's important is to understand how you all would like this to feel at the end of the day. One of the things we did at Guilford Street is we did a traffic signal warrant. So it's very difficult to get out of there, particularly in those busy days. And one of the logical remedies is to put traffic lights. So you can't just put a traffic light everywhere, and you have to meet what they call warrants. And there's a guidance document called the Manual on Uniform Traffic Control Devices, and it gives you tests. And in this particular case, there's to see if there's signals. They have 8 signal warrants that could be used to justify signalization. Some of them are crash related, some of them are the number of pedestrians, but the ones that we almost always rely on are the signal warrants related to traffic volumes. So what that says, that if you have a certain amount of traffic coming into an intersection and you have a certain amount of traffic going by for a certain amount of hours of the day, then you meet that warrant. So they have a peak hour warrant, so then you're looking at just that 1 hour and the criteria are higher. And then they have 4-hour warrants and the criteria get lower. And then they have 8-hour warrants, which are basically saying all day long, there's this interruption of flow that would be unnecessary for good operations and good levels of operation. All three of those signal warrants were met at Guilford Street. So the criteria to put a traffic signal, basically the hall pass that we would have to provide to get the permission to put a traffic signal was met. So that's that. These are some of the operating conditions. Now, what these letters mean is the way we look at intersections is they get graded and they call them levels of service. They go from A, just like a report card. A is great, F is failing. So you want to stay away from failing intersections, and as you get closer, there's different levels of acceptance. So for an area that's highly seasonal, like this, during peak hours, like this, so a level of service D or even E may be acceptable if that's when it was happening, and the rest of the day and the rest of the periods were much better. But in this particular case, at Guilford Street, in the morning rush hour, it's level service F in October, on a Friday. In the midday, E, and in the afternoon, F again. And we said, well, what if we put a traffic light up? So as you can see, if you put the traffic light up and you do the same analysis, levels of service get substantially better. A's, B's, and C's. And C is more than adequate.
Can I ask a question about that?
Uh,
When you're talking about traffic signals, are you talking about a regular red, green, orange, or are you also considering flashing red, three-way stops?
We have not considered that, but Sue and I were talking earlier, and it's going to be something we're going to look at. The reason we didn't look at it is usually, and not always, but usually, if a signal is warranted this overwhelmingly, the all-way stop control doesn't have the capacity because it's forcing everybody to stop. But we could check it. Sometimes you have a good enough balance on all three approaches where something like that could work. So we're gonna look at that because that might be a more reasonable, cost-effective solution. We also looked at what the queues would be. So if you're on Western Avenue, how far you back up. Again, keep in mind this is on Friday on October 4th. In red are when you get the red light and you pull up. When the light turns green again, that's what these numbers represent. So when the light
This is number of vehicles?
number of vehicles.
Number of vehicles.
Correct. So when you get to be the 9th vehicle, that's average. And that's what your queue would be. This is the maximum queue in blue. So again, there is some queuing, but what we're looking to make sure is it's not backing up into other intersections. And again, this is the back of the queue, so while it's building, it's not back there. It's only when it turns green again, how far back it is. The other analysis we did is we looked at coming out of the two William Street approaches to Western Avenue. We looked at the eastern leg and the western leg. And the western leg, which has the majority of the left turns, operates more poorly. The right turns, this doesn't factor in, that you can't see sometimes. It operates much better. If we put all of it on a single leg, in this case we put it on the eastern leg just to see what it would do. and basically you get an answer somewhere between these two. So it doesn't mean that the left turns get any easier. It just means that overall, the intersection on average has a slightly lower delay.
Are we taking
Yeah,
questions?
no, let's,
Okay.
yeah, let's, if you don't mind, because I said to you to wait, then I took another one, I feel, sorry. I'm just about done anyway.
We could put them back up on those questions.
Okay, so these are the activities. Let me just go through these quickly. On these boards here, this is the existing cross-section of Western Avenue. This is approximately in front of the, in front of the parking lot, not the parking lot at the deli, but at the store where the parking lot is, not the pulling out. Okay, so this is what it is today. And then we said, well, what can we do? So there's about 35 feet curb to curb. So we tried to stay as close to that as we could. And in this 35 feet, we have the 2 travel lanes, and we could put a kind of a buffer between the parking and the parking lane. And then you could have the sidewalks and open lawn area. This gets rid of the parking on this side, puts it on this side, and then we get rid of the buffer here, and we show a pedestrian refuge island, because since they're on that side of the road. So this is the deli side of the road, this is the opposite side.
Can I ask you a quick question here? It relates to the context here. Are these symbols proposed for the entire length from the interstate to Guilford Street?
Yes, because they would change, and I'll get to that in a minute, because
Okay.
some have more, they all have some bearing on Guilford
Okay,
Street.
that's all, yeah, that's just it.
Okay, this is parking on one side, this is parking on one side but adding a turn lane. And
That
this
turn lane would be to go
left, so coming from the highway, turning left
onto William Street?
onto William, onto Guilford,
Great, for both, yeah.
for both. And this is putting bike lanes and not putting any parking out there. So, again, you can see some of these cross sections get bigger, so I mean, you're encroaching probably onto one side or the other.
Can I ask you a question about context? Is exit 2 in there, taking a left off of exit 2, is that in this? I just haven't heard you say that.
It is in there, it's not the focus of the conceptual changes. We did do some, we did count out there, we did do some analyses. I have some results of those analyses. If you're interested, we could talk about it.
Well, yeah, I live right opposite and I worked a long time and it's pretty dangerous there. Like whenever there's the rush peak hours, taking a left turn is impossible and there's a lot of pressure to pull out. People want you to pull out even though there's cars coming horizontally, they want you to pull out. So I just don't get off at that exit during peak hours. Otherwise you take a right and then go around, which is not a good idea, but if you're stuck, you have to do one or the other, or just wait and be patient and let people honk at you, whatever.
It is part of the whole area wide. I guess it's not a focus of what we're doing here today, but certainly any of these concepts, if we could continue the
Yes.
concepts through the ramps, and we did count the ramps just for that purpose, so that we could see if any of these could be a continuation of whatever we developed through here.
Thank you.
I would just add, the state does control the intersection area, the interstate area. So, we would have to, we'd have to work with them on this anyway because it's state road, but we're in control of this part of it. In the intersection area, we'd have to get their buy-in as well.
That's just Western Ave with that
So-
William Street.
There's a certain distance from the intersection, or from the interchanges that they are controlled. So not I mean, we have to work with them on any changes that we made in these segments
Right,
as
right,
well to get their buy-in. There's probably more that we would need to do to get for the interchange area.
So what we're gonna ask you to do, we have red, yellow, and green. No coincidence, the colors of a stoplight. If you could put a red dot on one of these concepts that you don't like, no explanation, just put the dot on it. Second most preferred would be yellow, and the preferred of these 5 concepts. And if you felt that there was another comment you wanted to make on these, there's stickers over here. Just you could put a comment and just put a sticker right there and say, I like this, except, for example.
And for all these, is the duration of in front of the parking lot market?
That's what we use for these cross sections, but it's really what we're trying to establish is what kind of palette do we want as we go through here. In all cases, all cases except this, and by the way, you can put a green dot on existing if you don't want anything to change. But once we make a decision on which of these cross sections we want to focus on, then we got to fit it in, and then we got to see how it affects Guilford Street. So for instance, the left turn lane, you just run it all the way up and you get a left turn on Guilford, which would work nicely with a traffic light. You could still do that, but when you get to Guilford Street, but if you did one of these other things like bikes and you wanted to have a turn lane in Guilford Street, it would be very difficult because then you would still have to accommodate the bikes through there. But
I'm not visualizing any of those options.
okay, so the orange are where cars go. Okay, roadway.
So the orange is a road.
The orange is a road.
Okay.
The blue are sidewalks, pedestrians. Okay?
So is the orange Western Avenue?
Yes.
The orange is Western Avenue.
Yes.
Okay.
Okay. The red is a parking lane, which would be on Western Avenue also.
Okay.
And we show where the curbs are.
Okay.
Which side is the deli on?
This side.
So you're looking,
So it's
we're
gonna be
looking,
on the
we're
left.
looking west.
We're looking towards Guilford Street.
Okay.
And where is the deli store?
The deli store is here.
That's the deli store, that's not the deli itself.
It's both, because it's just,
Deli
it's a
deli
concept.
the-
It's a concept, I mean, it's based on the amount of roadway that's in front of the parking, the deli market and the parking lot.
Okay.
So
most of
essentially,
it-
the view on your board up there is that you're looking west.
West,
And we're
correct.
standing in the middle of the road looking west.
Yes.
It would be like
To
if
help
you were
everybody.
doing like a Google Street View looking west. That's how what you would be seeing. So you would actually see the cars.
And the refuse island, it means like you put this green strip down the middle of Western Avenue.
This right here,
Yeah.
that's for pedestrians. And the reason you do that is they only have to cross half the road at a time. So it makes it safer for them.
I think that if you think of it as the feature, you would like to see a median island, maybe, and then it doesn't mean it's gonna run all the way down, it just means that maybe where we have crosswalks, we're gonna try to fit that in.
Okay.
Because the right-of-way distance probably changes a little bit.
Having them crossing the road is just as bad as having them pull out on the road, backing out.
Well, there's, you can put that down.
Parking on the side.
Yeah.
That would be fine. Parking on the other side of the road it's not a good idea.
So put
Okay,
a red
so
light on
that's what
We
we're.
can help guide you to
I
the.
know that because they were parking on the other side of the road on the sidewalk.
Yes.
They were running across in front of people.
Yes.
And
Yes.
I was one of the people who ran.
So
I
just
almost hit somebody.
if you're putting parking on both sides of the road, you're moving part of it to the left towards the deli, so there's more room.
Getting rid of that.
The parking on both sides would require a 3-foot widening. Yes.
So it moves.
Moves that,
Towards
the
the-
deli curb 3 feet.
And the parking would all be parallel.
Yes.
The parking would be parallel, correct.
How is you gonna, their current parking spaces, there are probably 10 spots for vehicles that are pulled into that parking now. If you're gonna take that away and make them park in a parallel manner alongside, is there enough room?
Well, again,
That's what we need.
again, that's so, these are just the, our guiding principles, so to speak. So next time I see you, we're gonna have the actual concepts and they'll be in plan view, so you'll be able to see exactly what we're doing. They'll be like those ones that I showed you there.
If you,
That'll be-
if you think traffic gets backed up on Western Avenue now, just put parallel parking in there and see how long it takes for people to get in there. It's gonna slow traffic way down.
Yeah, well, is that a bad thing?
It can be.
Well, it's gonna back everything up.
If you have everybody stop and you get rear-ended.
If you live there,
I don't understand what he's saying.
All of these things you can put down your preferences.
Yeah.
Now, this one's easier because there's only 3 choices. Do you want to leave it as it is today? That's 2-way around both sides of the deli. Make it 1-way out on the easterly leg and one way in on the westerly leg, or maybe close one or the other. We show the westerly leg closing there and having all the
Still like
traffic
to repair the way they
going east.
Can you explain one thing that might help the whole group here? It's just a general question. Watching what's going on, you're talking about, do we want to park on this side or that side or both sides or close one lane or the other? Can you explain how you're adjusting the parking to any one of those plans is going to help the traffic flow along Western Avenue? And what's it going to do to the exit 2 interchange? How is it going to improve? How is it going to improve it over what you got right now?
Versus just creating a parking lot for the deli.
So,
Yeah.
so all of these concepts have different benefits and different non-benefits, I guess I would call it. So, a couple have been pointed out. If you put parallel parking on both sides of the road, you're creating a different environment. You're creating a traffic calmed section of road that is allowing for parking. It's going to give it a different feel, and there will be some friction for parking and unparking. Most of the time, depending on how many parking spaces, it might not be an issue. During those busy times, it will be an issue, and it will cause some friction on the road.
I mean, what it feels like is going on here is that rather than having an efficient state route going from point A to point B, we're building a parking lot for the deli and just happen to have people going through a parking lot. That's what it feels
that's not what we're doing. I'm sorry you feel that way. We are trying to improve the intersection safety, and if it's, and part of that is there is parking in front of the deli that impedes the way people can see out of that. So we're just doing kind of conceptual plans at this point. I know you feel that way. You've said it before. That's not the intent of this project. We're actually with some of these things trying to plan for all users of the road, because there are people that commute into Western Brattleboro and further, people who bicycle, who have no accommodation. So with this activity, we're really trying to understand what are the things that you would like to see in that roadway, and understanding that there is a business there and there might need to be some trade-off if we're trying to reduce some of the parking. So.
What do you think would be the maximum number of parking spaces that you could generate on any one of those plans?
I don't know.
You think you could go 50 plus?
On street.
You need that.
If you can't, at least not be good.
So, anyway, this one here is a catch-all. Okay, so this is a lot of the stuff you're saying that doesn't fall into that or fall into that you want us to know about. If it's related to a particular area, take one of these stickers, if it's item 1 and you want to talk about the intersection there, put the one there, get a sticky, write your note on it, and just put the number 1 so we know what it's related to. And then just put your sticky on this board. Okay?
So we have Arthur first. We'll go down the line.
I just wanted to make a comment that, just so, my understanding is like, so we're all making suggestions about general things that we'd like to see. You're gonna come back with a bunch of different ideas, not one, this is what we will do based on, and then we're gonna all have people who show up to another public meeting will get a chance to make more comments upon,
Right. So
upon proposed plans or
So,
designs.
this isn't, there won't be an infinite number of concepts.
Right.
So what we'll look at this and we'll look at the information and we'll see, there won't be consensus, but we'll look and see where the most consensus is and develop a concept around that. And then maybe we look at what the second consensus is and build a concept around that. And both consensuses may have some of the same components. And some of them will be counterintuitive when it comes to some of the components, and that'll be what distinguishes them.
And from the town's perspective, we're interested in improving safety, but also being realistic about cost.
What do you expect the cost to be?
We don't know.
I mean, are we talking 6 digits, 7 digits?
Probably 6 digits.
Yeah.
I think we had a couple questions, John, then Monroe, and then we'll go back. If we still.
So I have 2 questions. One is that, how wide is the corridor, the Western Avenue corridor, like in front of the store there?
35 feet, approximately.
And is that consistent with other corridors around the state, or less?
No, it's fairly typical. It's got nice shoulders, so you can bypass now. Now, any of these trees, by the way, you're taking away the biking capabilities. So if somebody is taking a left turn, you're taking away the ability to go around.
Right.
24 feet of that is gonna be for 2 lanes, 12-foot lanes.
2 12-foot lanes.
So yeah, if you're going in on
So it'd probably be 11-foot lanes.
So it's like sidewalks on each side, so would you redo both sidewalks? And
They're
then,
only a class 1 highway.
you know what I mean?
If we're trying to save cost, there's already a very good sidewalk.
Oh, so you just rip up it?
Yeah, so, one thought is, leave the sidewalks on the north side of the road. They're a little bit narrower than if we were building new today, but they're still functional.
Is it possible to acquire more land on the north side of Western Avenue and make it a wider corridor?
It's hard to hear John.
There's
It's hard to hear the questions. People are talking and it's.
So the question was is it possible to acquire more land on the north
Thank
side?
you.
Is it possible? Probably. Is it cost effective? Probably not. So,
Yeah, we're trying to fit, first off, best case scenario, fit within the curb to curb dimensions. Secondly, at least fit in within the right of way. So you have a little bit of additional width. And some of these things, if you need some sliver widening, you can still do them, and the land isn't owned by a private property.
Okay. So my second question is there a reason why you haven't considered a roundabout at Guilford Street?
The roundabouts take a tremendous amount of width. So when you're doing that, you're pushing, in this particular case, you have two obstacles. One is you'd be pushing into private property on the north side, and the grades there are very difficult. You can only have so much warp on these things or they just won't function because you are going centrifugally around them. So if you have too much grade, then on half of it you're going to be pulled out, and on half of it you're going to be pulled in.
Half a house slides off and goes into the.
So we could certainly do a test fit. Put a note down there. We could do a test fit, but probably, you know, if it was in the middle of a small neighborhood, you could do what's called mini roundabouts.
Yeah.
But if you have truck traffic and stuff like that, like you do on state highways, it's gonna be a full roundabout. Typically are minimum 100, 110 feet, minimum.
100 feet.
So we have this gentleman in the middle row.
Yes, sir.
I was gonna mention something about putting a roundabout there. I hate to say it, New Hampshire, live free, die. They've got those roundabouts all through Keene, around. I've never been in traffic when I was over there. The traffic flows quite well, and it slows the traffic down, whereas a traffic light stops traffic and causes a little bit of a backup. And I've seen Guilford Road all the way back past Memorial,
Yes.
past the park. Kept trying to get out on Western Ave, and the stoplight would allow. I mean, there's times when there's really a lot of traffic on Guilford.
High school traffic.
High school traffic and things, but if they could squeeze a roundabout in there, I know some of the park could go. My wife would appreciate that with less weeding. And the other side, the only problem is the communications building that's there. I think it's part of the parking lot.
Well, be sure to put a note down on the roundabout, we'll do a test fit and see
I
if
found
it's
roundabouts
even.
very successful.
Yes.
Keene has larger ones though,
They do.
where you can take a right turn, don't have to even go in the circle.
Yeah.
I skipped over to Monroe, so we're gonna go to Monroe, and then we're gonna go to you in the back.
Yeah, actually, I had one, but now it's evolved into 3 questions. Following up on the roundabout, I'd also like to request that you at least give some attention to the notion of a mini roundabout in terms of how it might work, but realizing that it might not be adequate. Actually, the first question I had was, you mentioned 80 crashes, 7 at Vermont Deli and 11 at Guilford Street. That leaves 62 more, 70, in excess of 75% of the crashes. Where did they occur?
That was a period of
Along
time.
this stretch.
Was that with injury?
That was just one period of time.
No,
Any crash.
80 had injuries.
Yeah, I saw that myself. That was-
A lot of them around the interchange.
Pulled out of that.
Yeah, so these are the crashes.
18.
And the colors show you where the hot spots are. So you can see the yellow there, the yellow there. There's a bunch here, but they're more spread out.
Oh, so that included the 80 up there by the interstate then? Okay.
Can they go in the back?
Yeah, so at one point there was the, study and the traffic light put up by the co-op, which used to be called Dysfunction Junction. But, and the first iteration, when they put the lights up, there was a bit of a disaster with backup and they changed things. And whoever did it was up north or something, because I actually called one because it was so crazy. Are you aware of that study, and is there any lessons learned in it that might apply to this study and plan that's happening?
I'm aware of it. As a matter of fact, we just finished the study of all of Canal Street from 91 to that junction. Do you learn any lessons? So I guess the lesson would be that traffic lights don't solve every problem. You have to have good geometry as a backbone.
A good what?
Good geometry. So if you had one car and they had to make all these different movements, they have to be able to make it efficiently and safely. And when you get into dysfunction junction, it's not always that way. It's uncertain sometimes where the turns can be and things like that, where the cars are coming from. Lessons learned for here, this geometry is very simple. This is as straightforward a T intersection with an artery and a side street as you can really get. The only thing that's a little bit tricky here is the grades on Guilford. So we have to make sure that, you know, you're not gonna be sliding back from the traffic light on an icy day or something.
And they did make improvements, and it is working now after they made those improvements. But again, the first iteration, when it was happening, was a real problem.
Yes, and it helped when the bridge got removed.
Great, thank you.
Just curious, were there any thoughts given on Guilford Street about maybe a left turn lane there so people can get out and not be stuck behind the person turning left?
We started looking at that.
A right turn lane, yeah.
Right turn lane.
That's the way the original bridge was.
Yeah.
Should have been.
Then
But
when they
apparently-
replaced it, they took that
Somebody had
option away.
really an idea of trying
A
to
right
reduce
turn
the
lane
traffic.
into Guilford?
Either.
Out of Guilford.
Right
Out of
in-
Guilford.
Out of
two
Guilford,
lanes.
out of
Slip
Guilford.
lane.
Out of Guilford, probably.
Okay,
Off
we'll
the
find out.
bridge.
I understand it was part of the plan for the road.
Yeah, and I had heard a rumor or something that the thought was to try and control the traffic in that area and make people seek alternate routes, that it was made purposely more difficult, which clearly that needs to be rethought.
Okay, so,
But I don't know if that's true or not.
the analysis we did for the signal, we did assume that there would be a left turn lane into Guilford. Because part of the advantage of having a traffic light is you take those left turns out of the mix. And you give them their place where they could sit and wait for their turn without blocking other traffic.
I was talking about coming
You're
off of
coming
Guilford.
out.
Yeah, no, I understand, I'm just telling you where we are in the process.
And would be helpful too, but I know that it's tight in there, so.
If the signal is an option that we're gonna pursue and take further, the next thing you wanna look at is there anything you could do to the geometry to improve the efficiency of the signal? So I showed you what those Q numbers were. We can improve those because right now we're analyzing it with one lane on Guilford Street for everything. So if we made it 2 lanes, we don't have to give Guilford Street as much green time. So that green then goes to the artery, and those 14 cars may become 11 cars.
And then on the A, B, C, D, F thing for the William Street intersections, did anybody notice, observe, or was it taken into account illegal parking, blocked parking, deliveries, things like that, constricting the non-normal traffic flow, basically? Not people just pulling out.
Well, we do have videos of the entire count period. I'm not sure if we collected it down the side streets, but we certainly have it on Western Avenue, which is part of what the company gives us, that does the counts for us.
What time of day were the Western Avenues done? The same time as the others, or
7 to 9
7 to 9
in the morning. I believe we did 11:30 to 1:30. I'd have to double check that. It might have been 11 to 1 or 12 to 2. I forget which we did. And then the evening was 4 to 6.
If you do put a light at the Guilford Street extension, and you time it so that if there's no traffic on Guilford Street, that it stays green on Western Avenue?
Yeah, typically that's how that would work. So there would be a call. If there was pedestrian indications there, a pedestrian could call it, a car on a side street could call it. And if it's not called, it's called semi-actuated. So the artery or Western Avenue does not have any detection. So it just stays green until somebody pulls up, and typically that car has to pull up for a minimum amount of time, 6 to 8 seconds, and then a call goes in to go through the yellow, red, and then ultimately green.
So I just have a question about the diagram, the one that says William Street and Western Avenue configuration. In the picture where you talk about where you X'd out or redded the west side of William Street, is there intention in that? Is there thought about using it, or I just wondered?
Well, those concepts that we showed earlier,
Right.
they all close that. All
Okay,
of
so,
those.
but it's not to be used? Just
Well,
not parking, not
it's used
something.
in part and parcel, because the sidewalk that's there now
Yeah.
has to be extended where the parking would be, the back out
Got it.
parking. And then
Got it.
if you close that, then you make it continuous so that you don't have another break there. So there's a lot of efficiencies and safety reasons to close it.
Thank you.
If you did close off that western leg, What do you do for the eastern leg? You'd have to
Have to be one.
take land to make that part wider, wouldn't you?
It would, the way it functions today with, because it's used for more than just cars. You know, there's it's right up against the deli and stuff. There might have to be some minor widening to make that whole stretch.
You have to take some land from the east side of the road.
We haven't gotten that far. Okay. But certainly.
Just wanted to put it in the back of your mind.
Yep, thank you. Thank you. And please, give us a sticky.
Expensive,
We want to see if there's any Zoom questions. If anybody on Zoom has a question, raise your hand. Otherwise, we can do the activity.
Yep.
I do have a solution.
And for those that are on Zoom,
Good point. So, I don't know. So anybody that's on Zoom, these activities or some version of these activities are on the story map. And what we're gonna do is put the QR code up here. And you could click on that QR code and that'll bring you to the story map. And within that story map is these activities, some version of them.
No, the ones on the hill, it's like, there's always somebody wants to do
Enough?
it somewhere, so just.
You can put a picture, then we can put a picture of it in the chat or something.
oh yeah.
Another very quick question. Have you had discussions, I'm assuming, with the deli in terms of what their parking needs are? And if you go in and say you can no longer be parking the way you are, what they need to have replace that in order not to be losing business?
I have not had any conversations in terms of how much parking or anything like that. So the way we're looking at this is we're gonna make a safety improvement. The first goal is safety. Second goal is to not harm, so replace in kind where we can. And the third is to add benefits that we can to the corridor. Maybe those are speed reductions, maybe it's more parking, maybe it's better pedestrian, maybe it's bike lanes, but that's what we'll find out today.
The deli doesn't fall under the rules of a restaurant where they have so many seats, they have to have so much parking or anything. So they have no,
They're not a restaurant.
yeah, they're not a restaurant, okay.
Not under our land
There's
use.
no regulation for them.
They're also, they have certain protections because they're a use that has been in existence
Because
for
what?
a long time. Because, yeah, they're a pre-existing non-conforming use.
They were a
So they have-
store with
Although-
a few people coming and going.
We're
They
not,
weren't a tourist attraction.
we're not
Okay.
here for
Yeah,
that.
we're not here for that,
Actually,
but-
we're here for this activity.
My question though, with the grandfathering is, okay, it was that way for 100 years. But I thought with grandfathering, you're not supposed to really change or add or grow. You have to kind of keep it as close to as is as possible.
We can take that conversation another time, because that would be with my department and permitting. It's not related to this.
And ultimately, the volume of business is related to this whole thing because of the amount of parking they're going to need. Ultimately, does impact on
This
traffic.
isn't really about the parking, though. It's making this safer for everybody who uses the street, so.
Well,
It'll be the town to have those conversations with the business owner when we have a plan, if we want to pursue it, so.
But I mean, this is all connects.
Ties together.
It does connect, and I don't want to pretend that it doesn't connect, but it's not, we're not just, in this project, we're not just focused on one business. And, we're trying to improve the intersections.
Ultimately, the root of the problem. Ultimately,
I understand that.
Not the Guilford Street problem.
Yeah, well, the root of the William Street problem.
If they were away, you wouldn't have a problem.
Yeah, they weren't there.
Should I grab sticky notes so I can make my comments now, or be the activity section? Yeah, trying to.
Activity has begun.
wanted to say something.
Put on the sticky note.
I'm here, so.
Well, I just think you can go exit reflection.
Oh, good.
Deli doors, all lots and.
You have a solution?
I live in Guilford,
Everything is green down here.
Number 2, number 3. Up on 8,
No, I could say.
You know, we can start
across the intersection from any
Like 5 minutes, like, stop before the intersection. People make a right-hand turn. It's gonna stop the whole
It's how you get around.
Yeah.
Anyway, nice meeting you guys. Take care. See you at the next one.
And so you know where to find us.
And that's really
Right, yeah. Biggest part. I did email everybody.
Anybody can reach out to them. I know where he lives.
Down by the interstate. I don't know what his plan is.
Too bad we don't go not the oversized. At 250.
Yes. But see, I was saying, what if I go on this and then he is so dangerous? And they and it's also so Dan is our DPW director, and he can tell you all about that.
Shift the lanes as much as we can, so increase the width of the shoulders. It's gonna be
And I live in
With the what? Oh, yeah.
There was someone about
We live on Bristol Town. Right on the corner.
Say something to you guys
Well, thank you for coming. I hope
Well,
so.
oh, right here.
Speak up so I can read it.
East on West Friday night.
So part of the problem is
Can't wait.
it's putting some of the
Oh, really?
Sometimes they come in.
But, the state is doing all the classes.
I don't know, I heard you got the money.
So like foliage, time, we have a lot of extra, which it's an abnormal time.
It's not good, but it's still way out west.
Yeah, but it's still, it's an anomaly.
What's interesting about here is
So we are hoping to get out and do some more,
I offered to get her my face.
So I think
It's close, I mean, cause I'm a sales attorney. I do all the intersection multiple times a day. Sometimes it takes me.
I don't think $1,000 a year.
I would say.
Maintain that.
Yeah, I can see it like.
Not even food. And I think that would be.
It's not in the industry like you. It doesn't feel like it's an issue. And I'm like, evidently, doing business all over Vermont, multiple times a week. I used to live in Burlington, sometimes only 10 minutes commute would take 45 minutes on the road. I don't know, there's this.
The kit
And
test.
there's all very, very Vermont. Someone tried to left on Guilford. So many times, like.
Well, I would say, I think we're gonna.
They watch cars making like Guilford.
I know you have.
Oh, I want the bike lane on both sides.
And we worry about.
Yes.
The speed is.
So we were, some of the treatments.
I watched.
I mean, as you've seen, there's almost like every day, I don't know how many wide load trucks coming from New York with like the capital with like these like houses. We need to grow. I don't know, like. They are. They do. I'm like, they're not touching my pearls. Twice a week. And
It's like a different parking.
you know, I'll see anywhere from 4 Every single day.
Before the street.
It's new, it must be the new standard, because Dickie's, a lot of people have gone down in Northfield, but it's standard for yeah, 63.
But then the other thing about this is.
The thing that goes between Northfield and Bernardston and where 142 hits it, yeah, 10. It's an amazing, I mean, they've gone huge, and it's really incredible what they've done. And it's on, and they've done it also, I feel like, yeah. I feel like they're also doing the But they did that a couple of years ago, actually, like several years ago. And now I haven't seen this since I'm wondering again, it was a new standard.
I live on Phillips doing it, and so I have a lot of experience. And if you come out on the.
They actually started last fall and then stopped. Apparently,
There are cars.
in the parking lot because they had a bunch of trees.
Oh, yeah.
And there was like
Between
drainage.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. They all stopped and they permit everything. Turned into a
Honestly,
big.
Yeah.
You're taking 11
And another 5 years.
Not a lot of
I got a long ways to go. Yeah, Johnny deal.
Safely get out of the bushes.
Yeah.
A little piece of yellow.
Oh, you do?
Stick it out.
Well,
4 feet.
you do, good, you know what, I've really been, and I saw it, I was thinking hard to and I saw the pool, I saw the pool. And, have you seen that one?
I've seen the pictures.
And I just wanted to do it just to do it for a while, you know what I mean?
I like it with the dowel.
Yeah.
Because it's straight and it also has less errors.
Oh, right. It probably, yeah, way wrong, yeah. No,
It's somewhere between.
Yeah.
It's like not quite.
We have
And then you'll look at it.
Great records. So much of it.
That's good, you know, that's really good.
Right. Yeah, exactly. You know, it's over a long time, you can't hold your phone because you could go back and those have an address. So you can look it up, you know.
I would believe you. Honestly, I feel we should put yellow
Every single time. It's been going on for so long.
Because of the shoulders.
The shoulder, this is not.
Yeah.
And the real activity. It's all 100%.
I think that if they just make some parking it would be perfectly fine at that point. That parking is necessary, right? It's not
I definitely.
I really do. I really, it's the worst. It's just the worst.
But you know what? It's all weekends. It used to be some weekends. Now it's all weekends. It's such a holiday penalty.
And that's so that we want to. So remember that not that this is not change things. I know, but talking about
As a concrete. So there's a fair amount of travel coming talking about. And you know, however we do it, safe. And they're cheap. That's not you
Every day, every morning.
Carpentry.
Oh, yeah.
Shop set up right up.
Carpentry shop.
Plus, millions of the actual world.
It's so dangerous.
And you better come back, Claude, that's right, absolutely. Well, actually, I'm gonna put a sticker on it. That's what I'm doing, I should write it down. Yeah, I will. Yeah, good.
You could add parking now.
How are you?
Right. If the cars are parking there, but they would still be parking with them. No, here they're parking on their parallel because there's the deli sidewalk, and there's the parking lot, and then there's the sidewalk.
Well, what I'm saying is. So,
East side.
you wouldn't really feel.
Well, you know what, they're not even, they're
Brzezinski, there you go.
whatever they call that place. But just because of, I guess, the geometry, there's the parking lot, there's the sidewalk, and then there's the car. They're not sticking out in the process because they're making it impossible. Anyway, I've made my point a couple of times, they're making it impossible to see.
Oh, good stuff.
They did upgrade the light and the range. When they did upgrade,
You consider any
increased the little
business
involved. And the state gave
Customer
them money
counts
to
are,
do
sales are.
the state gave them money to do the upgrade. They did the upgrade and then Act 250 was a violation.
So are they,
Is it just sort of?
Well,
If you want to- no, they-
You didn't
the
want
range
your
is-
safety up there,
Yeah,
right?
they still
It's
have the
really
safety.
no new parking.
They do have the range,
And the fishing?
the fishing, and the range is also.
And I'm a pedestrian.
I can tell you, the recommendation of the study, and I can make it very we try to stay away from even.
See you guys. I don't need a wrap activity.
Thank you. See ya. Yeah, I can see you.
Thanks, Dan. Thanks, Sue.
Thanks, Sue.
We'll,
Again, you have the wrong audience. Me personally.
I know.
Because we're not.
I know you're concerned about the actual.
Yeah, they might have to go back.
Beyond those.
To the extent that it has a geometric.
Dumb idea.
We'll look at it.
For a year and a half.
Certainly.
There'll probably be a period like where we'll
Wrap up,
have
I think some
Yeah.
people are
to
leaving
close
and.
like your
Who's
parking
here?
lot,
Close
exit down, you
Yeah.
know, on that side.
Um,
So they're gonna try to keep the other leg open. So.
Can I get everyone, for whoever's left for a minute, just to wrap up? Thanks everybody for coming out. I heard a lot of really good stuff. Hopefully, everything that was said in little side conversations made it to sticky, I hope. Because my memory's not what it used to be. But anyway, thank you all for coming out. Our next step is to really assimilate all the stuff that we're hearing tonight and then make sense of it and see where it leads us as we start developing the concepts. So thank you, everyone. And you know, I could be reached. I'm sure our phone number's on the story map. If anybody would like my personal number, I can give it to you before we leave too. So
Or you can send it to me and I'll pass it.
yeah, that's.
It's very generous of you to.
So when was the next step? Sorry.
Well, the next step for us is immediately. So we'll take this back. We'll go back to the shop. I would think, you know, maybe a month or so we start passing some concepts along and some ideas along. So we'll go back and forth a little bit on that, and then we'll pick a date for the next meeting. And, we'll go from there.
Great.
Thank you.
So
Thank you.
maybe midsummer, something like that.
Thank you.
Thank you, everyone.